All right. Happy Monday. How you guys doing? Welcome to This Week in Money. I'm your host, Jose Gonzalez, aka Mr. Wealth Mindset. We are simulcasting tonight on a few platforms. So wherever you are, make sure to like, make sure to share, make sure to comment, make sure to engage. I'm gonna start doing these lives on Monday night. There's a lot going on right now in the world of money. For those that don't know me, I'm a financial mindset coach and wealth strategist. I help people not only overcome the limiting beliefs that we have about money, but I also teach people exactly how to invest in a way that's sound and safe. And so I'm going to start doing these lives Monday nights, 8 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time, as a way just to bring some financial education. I believe that financial education and literacy is the civil rights movement of our time. And if you're remotely aware of what's going on in the news these days, it's a crazy time. People are concerned about what's happening in the market, what's happening with the US dollar. So that's what we're going to get into tonight. We're going to talk a little bit about what's happening with the US dollar, if you need to be concerned with it. Is it a chance that it may crash? Right, there's a lot of speculation about whether the dollar is going to crash. So we're going to talk about that tonight. We're going to get into it. I'm going to be answering your questions here live. So if you have questions specifically about what's happening in the markets, what's happening in the world right now, with this crazy times that we're having here, with the economy, I want you to comment in the comment section below wherever you're watching. Let me know where you're watching from. Say hello. Don't be shy. And also, hit me with your questions. If you have questions about what's going on in the market, what you should do to protect yourself, let's talk about it. So with that being said, I'm going to get right into it, guys, and we're going to start to talk about what exactly is happening with the US dollar today. Okay, so if you're watching this live transmission, it's April 10th, Monday, April 10th, 2023. We're a few years removed from the crazy. I don't even want to mention it, right? I don't want to get my video, flagged. But you know what happened in 2020. You know how crazy times have been, and whether you're living here in the US or whether you're seeing this from a remote part of the world, you know that, we're living in very, crazy times financially speaking. So, like I said, tonight I'm going to talk about what's happening with the US dollar, what you need to know, and how you can protect yourself, right, against everything that's going on. So, you know, a lot of people call, the US dollar, they call dollars, they call it money, right? So, you go to work, you make money, everyone's trying to get that bag, trying to get money. But I want to take a step back before we even get into this for a second. Excuse me, I'm drinking seltzer. I want to get into this for a second. And I want to actually, my physics teacher in high school, Mr. Massimo, whenever we would discuss something, he would say, before you can discuss anything, before you can talk about anything, you have to define it, right? You have to define it so that we have a clear understanding of what it is that we're talking about. So what is money? Okay, people think that their US dollars are money, and to a degree they are. Okay, all, it's a form of money, but that's not exactly what money is. Now, historically, there's been three things that have been used. Hey, Dolores, how you doing? Thank you for joining in. Please, guys, if you're watching this, feel free to share this on whatever platform you're watching it. My mission is to reach as many people as possible, to get this information out to as many people as possible. Um, and really, there's a lot of people that are being affected by what's going on in the world right now. So we want to share this with as many people as we can. So thank you. So let's get back to it. Definition of money. What is money? Okay, what is money? A lot of people don't even know what money is, and it's one of those things that gets, thrown around very easily. So first off, traditionally speaking, the traditional definition of money, it has to have three things. Okay, it has to have three things. Thank you so much. Oh, my lovely wife is here. Thank you, baby. I love you. Hey, Elizabeth, great to see you. So money has to have three things. All right. Now, first thing about money is that money must function as a medium of exchange. Okay, which means that basically means that it has to be widely accepted as a way for people to purchase goods or services. Okay. The second thing that money must be is that it must be a unit of account. Okay. Meaning that there has to be a standard of measurement. Okay. And the third thing that money must be is means it has to be a store of value. And what that means is that money has to hold its value over time. Okay. Now, I say all that to say, for anyone watching, I hope this doesn't come as a shock to you, but our dollars, all right, $1 bill, $5 bill, $20 bill, $100 bill, any type of paper money that you have or currency, actually, I want you to know it's not actually money. Okay. It's not actually money. All right. And I'm gonna tell you what I mean. So historically, there's been a few kinds of money over time. You have different kinds of money. You have what's called commodity money, right? Which commodity money was probably the first form of money. Okay. And that's when you had some type of tangible asset, all right, that possessed all of these things that was widely accepted as a medium of exchange, a store of value, all of these things, right? And traditionally, people had maybe cattle, okay, where someone might say, hey, listen, I want to buy that land from you, so I'm going to give you X amount of sheep or X amount of oxen, whatever it was, right? But sometimes it's hard to trade right with livestock. And so over time, historically, there were many different things that were used as money, right? Salt, spices, tea, cacao beans, okay, and of course gold and silver. Okay, gold and silver is something that has always existed, always had value, because of its rarity, because it's untarnishable. It's so many properties that gold and silver have, and that's one reason that's always been considered money. Then you have, as another form of money, besides commodity money, you have, as I just mentioned, precious metal coins, right? Gold, silver, copper. I mean, dating back to ancient Greece, ancient Rome, um, going back in history, precious metal coins were probably our first physical, tangible form of money that was not a commodity like salt or spices or coffee or things like that. Then you have what's considered um, paper money, right? Paper money. And the Chang dynasty back in the 7th century in China were probably the first to have paper money, all the way up through the 17 and 1800s in Europe. But the thing about paper money is that it has always been backed by some form of physical assets, usually gold, or silver, like the Spanish silver peso, right? So it's always been backed by something. Okay, paper money traditionally was always backed by something. Okay. Now let's talk about here in the U.S., for example. Just let's get specific and talk about here in the U.S. I'm sure most of us that are watching this are here in the U.S. at this time. And if you're watching from another country, if this video finds you years from now, please comment below. Let me know where you're watching from. But a lot of people don't even know and understand the history of money here in the U.S. Okay. Now, back in 1913, that's when the Federal Reserve was first created. Okay. And at that time, our US dollar, okay, that's when we started having federal, because before then, different colonies and different states had different, money, which made it kind of hard to work together, right? Because you might have money from Virginia, this other person has money from Nebraska, and and they were backed by their own state, or in some cases, a lot of the paper dollars before the Federal Reserve came around were backed by the Spanish silver peso. But when the Federal Reserve was formed back in 1913, that's when the US dollar officially, as we know, with this Federal Reserve note, came into existence. And at the time, it was almost considered the gold standard. Now, the gold standard is basically this international monetary value exchange that's accepted by all the countries around the world, where excuse me, the currencies, the paper money, is actually backed by a measure of gold, right, on a standard price. So that's what the gold standard is. And at the time that our US dollar was created back in 1913, that the Federal Reserve was created, our US dollar was backed by gold. It was on the gold standard, okay? Because again, paper money in and of itself really has no value, okay? It needs to be backed by something because paper is just paper, right? It's always needed to be backed by something. Now, in the last 100 years, and I don't know why we didn't learn about this in school, right? We learned a lot of things in school that are not applicable to your life, okay? But we weren't taught about this in school. Now, in the last 100 years, a lot has happened in this country, in the world, but let's talk about here in America with the US dollar. So, as I mentioned, that US dollar was backed by physical gold. You fast forward 20 years to 1933, President FDR, Franklin D. Roosevelt at the time, he actually made it illegal for US citizens to own physical gold. All right. It was illegal for us to own physical gold, meaning bullion, to have coins or gold certificates. All right. And so at that time, gold was $20 an ounce. All the citizens that had gold had to sell it back to the government for the $20 an ounce that it was worth. And it was illegal for us to hold gold, right? And that was the case for a long time. That was the case for about almost 40 years. And we're going to get into that in a second. All right. But after the Second World War in 1944, there was a meeting of the minds. Most of the big superpowers, countries around the world, came together in New Hampshire, a place called Bretton Woods, and they formed what was known as the Bretton Woods Agreement. Okay, now again, many of us were not taught about this in high school. I mean, I loved history, I love global history, I love U.S. history. Never heard about the Bretton Woods Agreement. Okay, but what the Bretton Woods Agreement did, amongst other things, is that it established the US dollar as the world's reserve currency. Okay. Now, what does that mean? Now, there's been other forms of world reserve currencies throughout the years. Back in the 14 and 1500s, the Portuguese real, because at that time Portugal had an empire. They were pretty much the strongest currency in the world. Then fast forward maybe another 100 years, the Spanish silver peso, then the Dutch guilder. Then the British pound for a long time was the world's reserve currency. But in 1944, the US dollar became the world's reserve currency. And what that means, what a reserve currency means, is that it's internationally recognized and accepted, okay, by countries around the world as something that has value, that can be used for exchange, and is as a store of value. Okay. So now I can get deeper into that, and maybe I will just a little bit. Okay. Maybe I will just a little bit because I think this is important for you to know. Now, what happened in 1944 was that we said to all of the countries around the world, right? Many of these countries around the world, maybe not every single country, but many of the countries around the world, the countries that participated in Bretton Woods, give us your gold for safekeeping. We're going to sell it to you. At that time, the current price was $35 an ounce. We're going to sell it to you at $35 an ounce, which you can use to buy U.S. Treasury bonds. And you can always redeem your gold. You can always, get it whenever you want at that same price. Okay. And the reason for that, obviously, there had been 2 world wars. There was a lot of political, and geopolitical unrest throughout the world. And it was like, hey, let us hold this for you for safekeeping. You can always buy it back. And so that's what happened. Now, that helped us be able to make the dollar stronger, because now, since we had all of this gold, you see, you can't print up dollars unless you have something to leverage it against. So every dollar that was in circulation at that time was actually backed by physical gold. Okay, because again, paper really has no value other than that you subscribe to it. So our US dollar being backed by physical gold, by us having all of this gold from these different countries around the world, it allowed us to be able to print up more and more dollars. Now, different things started happening. Countries started getting concerned, right? That perhaps the US was printing up more US dollars than we actually had gold to back it. And so a lot of countries started repatriating their gold. Okay. For example, President Charles de Gaulle in France sent actually a Navy ship to New York Harbor full of US dollars asking for France's gold back. And we gave it back, right? We had an agreement, we gave it back. But as a result, one of the biggest things that's ever happened in the history of our country, and again, it blows my mind as to why this has never been taught or discussed in school, but one of the biggest things that's happened in the history of our country was that in 1971, August 15th, 1971, during a live taping of Bonanza, President Nixon at the time, okay, came on television and announced to our American citizens that temporarily the United States was going to go off the gold standard. Okay, temporarily, right? We were going to go off the gold standard. He closed the gold window. And what that means in layman's terms is that starting August 15th, 1971, the US dollar was no longer backed by physical gold. Now, there's speculation as to why we did this. One of the reasons that people speculate was the fact that many countries were repatriating our gold, and we were in danger of not having enough gold to actually back the amount of dollars in circulation. But other people speculate that we were struggling to pay for the Vietnam War. Okay, we needed more money to pay for the Vietnam War. So what happens is, by us going off the gold standard, now our money became known as what's known as fiat currency. Okay, it's a very important concept for everyone to know and understand. All right, it became known as fiat currency, which is another way of saying, although this is not the definition of the word fiat, but it's another way of saying fake. Our money became fake starting on that August night in 1971. And why do I say that our money became fake? Because a fiat currency is not backed by any other physical commodity. It gets its credit worthiness from the good faith that we have in our government that is actually worth something. Okay? That's where fiat currencies gets its value. All right? And since 1971, our government, because our money is fiat, it's currency, it's not money, all right, has had the ability to print up money whenever it wants. All right. Now, I need you to understand why that's a bad thing. Let me use an analogy first. Okay. Now, let's say that if anybody has ever played Monopoly, okay, anyone has ever played Monopoly, and you're losing in the game. Now, by the way, if you ever played Monopoly and you read the rules, one of the rules is that the bank never runs out of money. Okay. Even if it has no money, it never runs out of money. And I think that's very telling with what's happening right now. Okay. But imagine that you're playing, and let's say that you're winning. All right. Let's say that you're winning. Let's say that you're winning, and the person that you're trying to beat is losing and they're out of money. But they say to you, you say to them, oh, you landed on Boardwalk. I got 2 hotels. You got to pay me rent. And they have no money, but they say to you, wait, hold on a second. And they turn around and they get a piece of paper. Let's say that they owe you $2,000, and they write on 500, 500. They cut it up and they hand it to you, and there you go, $2,000. You would say, "What the heck? No, this is fake, right? Where's your monopoly money?" Okay, that is exactly what fiat currency does. All right, that's exactly how the government, how the Federal Reserve, that's exactly the times that we're living in right now. Okay, you've seen it happen recently with the collapse or the almost collapse of these banks. When these banks are about to go out of business, people are withdrawing their money, interest rates have gone up, okay, and they can't cover, the hundreds of billions of dollars of treasury bonds that they purchased. They can't make their payment on it, and the banks are about to go out of business. And what does the Federal Reserve do? They just print more money. They just get some paper, write some numbers on it, and say, "Don't worry, here you go," and it's good. Okay. Now, it's very important that people understand this, because, again, this wasn't taught in school, but this is so important to what's happening in the world right now and the reason that people struggle financially. Okay. Imagine playing a game and not knowing the rules. How good would you be at that game? I mean, you would have to just be lucky. You would have to be lucky to have any level of success. Right? Anytime that you play a game, the first thing that you do is try to understand the rules, because your success is predicated. Yep. Fiat. That's right. Like fiat, meaning credit. And I love that you said that, Elizabeth, about credit, because JP Morgan, right? One of the world's richest, greatest financiers ever, who started JP Morgan Chase, he said, "Gold is money. Everything else is credit." Right? Back in 1912, he was testifying in Congress, and he testified and he said, "Gold is money. Everything else is credit." Okay. So since 1971, our money, our fiat currency, is basically fake money, which is why the government can print it up whenever they want. Okay. We saw this during the pandemic. In 1 month of 2020, that our government printed up more money in 1 month than we have in the last 100 years. Okay. In the last 3 years, we've printed up about $6 trillion. All right. If any of you are my age, you remember when we was kids, there wasn't no such thing as a trillion. Okay. It was a pretend number: trillion, gazillion, bazillion. All right. We could only go up to billions, and the concept of someone being a billionaire was almost, unheard of. But this is what's going on today. Our money is fake. Now, back to the topic at hand. Is the US dollar about to fail? All right, let me just give you a spoiler alert and tell you I don't know. Okay? I don't know. No one can say with any level of certainty. But what I want to do here is just share with you some information, okay? So that you can make your own assessment, so that you can, decide for yourself what you think is going to happen. I personally don't know, but I study history, okay? There's many different quotes, many variations of this quote that says, if you don't know your history, if you don't study history, you're doomed to repeat it. Now, our money is fiat currency. Our US dollar is fiat currency, okay? And I can tell you this: there's a long history of failed fiat currencies, okay? Because, again, a fiat currency is paper money, like our US dollar is, that is not backed by any physical value, by any physical asset, okay? It's just money that the government can print whenever they want, and we have to accept their good faith that it has value. I don't know about you guys, but that seems like a scary proposition to me. All right. And like I said, there's been a long history of failed currencies throughout the world. If you go back to the 1920s in Germany, right? During, during the Great Depression, after World War I, before the rise of Hitler, They had severe economic problems, massive hyperinflation. In fact, at its highest, prices doubled every 2 days. Okay? Think about that. Think about buying eggs today. 2 days from now, the price doubles. 2 days from then, the price doubles. 2 days from that, the price doubles. All right? Their money became absolute worthless. Right? There's pictures of people needing wheelbarrows of their money just to be able to buy a loaf of bread. Google this. All right? Look it up. Everything that I'm saying, I'm sharing this with you, not so that you can take my word for it, so you can do your own research. This is history. Okay? Fast forward, Argentina, dating back to 1975 when I was born. They've had over the last few decades several huge economic crises. The most recent one being in 2018. All right, when they suffered a massive, economic recession, and poverty was at an all-time high. This was just 5 years ago, before what happened around the world, which I don't want to talk about because I don't want to, get my channel flagged. All right, Zimbabwe. All right, in the first 2 decades of the 2000s, they decreased agricultural production. Okay, which, well, actually, they changed land reform policies that led to a lowering of production, agricultural production, as well as a lot of political unrest. All right. And at their highest in 2009. Now, you guys know that last year our inflation numbers hit at around 10% or something like that, right? And they say that if you adjust it to back 40 years ago at the value of the dollar, that's really closer to like 18%, right? And you saw how deeply affected we were here in this country. Where in 2009, at the height of Zimbabwe's economic crash, their inflation hit 79.6 billion%. Okay? We just had a percent of around 10% inflation. Imagine 79.6 billion% inflation. All right? Rendering their money absolutely worthless. Venezuela, another example, which, by the way, Venezuela back in the early 90s was one of the richest, most financially astute and powerful countries in the world. Well, just in the last couple of years alone, the Bolivar has declined rapidly. Okay, they have political unrest. All right, economic turmoil. It's bad. It's a bad time to be in Venezuela. All right, people are fleeing the country. There's civil war. There's all types of madness going on. So I like that question, Elizabeth. How are we the most powerful country in the world and we owe trillions of dollars? Well, that's, we're powerful because of our military presence. And the other reason that we're powerful, but we owe trillions of dollars, is because one thing that people don't understand about the wealthy is that wealthy people have a lot of debt. Okay, wealthy people actually know how to use debt to make money. All right. See, when we think of debt, we think of personal debt. We think of credit cards, right? When people are broke and they say, "Oh, I have debt." Yeah, you have debt for liabilities, right? What does that mean? It means that the debt that people who are struggling financially, the debt that they carry is vanity debt. Okay, people get credit cards and they buy stuff, right? They want to keep up with the Joneses. All right, they want to go on vacations. That's not what wealthy people do. Okay, wealthy people borrow money, get credit, and they invest in assets. Okay, they invest in businesses, they invest in the market, or like I said, they spend that money on assets, things that are going to pay them. Okay, so when the U.S. having debt, it's not the same way that we think about debt. Okay, the U.S. having debt is not the same way that most people think about debt. All right, that debt allows us to make more money. But here's the thing: we can just print up money. We can just print it up out of thin air. Okay, and of regular people, we can't do that. Okay, when your landlord wants his check, wants his mortgage, right? When the rent is due, when you go to the supermarket, you just can't say, wait, hold on, and go get some colorful paper and write on it with a Sharpie and pay with it. But that's exactly what the government can do. They can get paper, they can print it up, and they've got money. All right. So that's a very, something that I definitely want to draw the line for people to understand is that, we can't make money. The government can make money. Okay. We've got to take money. Okay. We've got to take money. If I'm a store owner, I need you to, and I sell products and goods. If I have a business, I can't make money. I need to provide value to someone so that person can give me their money that they have. Okay. Because we can't make money. Only the government can make money. Only the Federal Reserve can make money. All right. Businesses, employees, we've got to take money from someone else. We have to give something of value in order to actually get that money, but the government doesn't have to do that. So again, going back to whether this US dollar is going to fail. Okay. I want to, point out a few things that I think that are important for people to know. So I talked about how in 1944, we became the world's reserve currency after the Bretton Woods Agreement. But then in 1971, our money became fake, right? There was nothing back in it. There was nothing back in it. Now, the U.S. understood that by not having gold back in the U.S. dollars, okay, that it was not going to have the same value, right, as a reserve currency. So fast forward 1974, okay, the U.S. government went into a military cooperation agreement with the Saudi Arabian, regime, with the royal family of Saudi Arabia. And basically what we did with them was that we made this very private agreement that there's very, very few details known about to this day, in which we agreed to offer them protection, military protection, okay? And in exchange for that, they would sell their oil in US dollars. Okay. And that's when the US dollar became what's known as the petrodollar. All right. And this allowed us to keep that reserve currency status because now the entire world needs dollars to buy oil and energy. Okay. And so that went on for a long time. All right. That went on for a long time, for almost 50 years. But what a lot of people don't realize, last year, while Americans were hanging off of planes and we were pulling out of Afghanistan and everybody was focused on the news, a lot of people don't realize that Saudi Arabia went into a military cooperation agreement with Russia. Okay, they went into a military cooperation agreement with Russia, and they started selling their energy, their oil, in the Chinese yuan. All right. And the very next day after that, Nigeria, which is another huge OPEC country, did the exact same thing. Okay. And now, if you guys pay attention, and I recommend that you do, go look up what the BRICS nations is. Okay. Go look up what's happening right now, because Russia I mean, China is brokering deals between countries that have historically never worked together. They brokered peace between Saudi Arabia and Iran, Shiite and Sunni Muslims who have century-old feuds. Okay, they're brokering deals with the Russians. They're brokering deals with a lot of countries, and these countries are coming together and banding together and starting to purchase energy in the Chinese yuan. Okay, so now Saudi Arabia is selling their oil and it's not in US dollars. Okay, the era of the US dollar being that petrodollar has come to an end. Now, I don't expect the United States to stay idle. All right. I'm sure that there's things at play that they're working on. And I'm sure that this does not come as news to them that we were headed in this direction. Okay. There's speculation about a digital currency here, central bank digital currency, where they're trying to make our dollars, instead of having to print it, they can just type in money, numbers on a computer. There's speculation that the government is going to try to pass this Fed now. You've seen how all these banks are failing. And, the government, Secretary Yellen, Janet Yellen, the Secretary of the Federal Reserve, was being questioned in Congress a few weeks ago. And she was asked by a representative from Oklahoma. He was saying, hey, listen, all these banks are failing and you're bailing them out. So I just want to know, if our banks, if our regional small community banks here in Oklahoma fail, are we also going to be bailed out? And she said pretty much verbatim that the FDIC, the Federal Reserve, and herself would decide unilaterally, okay, who would be bailed out and who wouldn't be bailed out. Okay, now you need to think about that. So as a result of that, a lot of people are, taking their money out of smaller banks and putting them into bigger banks, fearing that if some type of crash, that only the big banks are going to be bailed out. Okay, but again, there's no guarantees how this is going to play out. All right, there's absolutely no guarantees how this is going to play out. So, is the US dollar going to crash? Are we going to go to a central bank digital currency? Okay, like I said, our US dollar is a fiat currency. And guys, in the history of fiat currencies, there's never been a currency that's lasted more than 50 years. In fact, the US dollar is almost at 52 years right now. I like to call it the Tom Brady of fiat currencies, right? Because it's playing way past the time that anyone expected it to play for. All right. But again, if you study history, you know that things repeat themselves. Okay. And like I said, 50, there's never been a fiat currency that's lasted over 50 years. Okay. We're currently the world's reserve currency. All right. And generally, there's never been a world reserve currency that's lasted over 94 years. All right. In fact, in 1999, when they launched the euro dollar, unofficially the euro dollar is basically another world reserve currency. It's the second largest world reserve currency behind the US dollar. It's used by I think 17 or 19 European countries. It's it's internationally traded and accepted as a monetary value. So, there's a lot going on right now. That's right. The BRICS nations, Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa. And a lot of countries are applying to join the BRICS nation. Mexico, Japan, okay? A lot of countries are trying, Saudi Arabia, a lot of countries are trying to join BRICS. All right. And these countries that make up the BRICS nations represent around over 30% of the world's population. Okay, if considerably a large amount of the world's population. And as you can see right before our eyes, they're banding together for a reason. Okay, so again, I don't know if the US dollar is going to crash or what that's going to look like. All right, how that's going to play out for us as US citizens. What I do know, and my hope is that people start waking up and paying closer attention to what's happening in the world and look for ways that they can protect themselves. Right now, that's that's part of what I do in my business. Right, I teach people, how to invest, how to acquire tangible assets that allow them to protect themselves against times like these, right? And I'm not the only one. There's a lot of people. So, if you're looking for someone to help you with that, you can reach out to me. But if not, if you know someone that can help you, then I would recommend that you reach out to that person and say, hey, it's crazy out here. What do I need to do? Right? What do I need to do? Okay. So, guys, I'm going to wrap it up for there. If we have any questions, go ahead and drop those in the chat, and let me know in the chat if this was helpful. Okay. Let me know in the chat if you learned something today that you didn't know, right? If I opened your eyes to something that perhaps you either didn't know, or you weren't thinking about, right? I would love to know. I would love to know your thoughts um, on this information that I shared. Now, I'm going to be going live every Monday night with this segment on my channel, on my platform called This Week in Money. And that's what we'll be talking about. We'll be talking about, what's going on in the world of money, what you need to be aware of, because there's so much going on. There's so much going on. Like there's things that happened this past week and the week before that I haven't even discussed here tonight. But I wanted to lay the groundwork for what I call like the money 101, right? US dollar 101. What I think that people need to know and be aware of as it relates to the US dollar. And again, I'm not here to say that the US dollar is shoot, let me know your question. I'm not here to say the US dollar is going to fail or not going to fail. What I'm saying is that, I'm watching it for over a year now. My wife and I have been positioning our resources and assets in anticipation of its potential collapse, or if not its collapse, of how we can protect ourselves about keeping money in the bank or take it out. Oh, great question. Great question. So let's see. How do I answer this? Should you now, I don't even know if I want to say this publicly, but let me just say that most of my money monies are insured up to 100K FDIC. So technically your money is insured in the bank up to $250,000 FDIC. Okay. Now, with that being said, if a bank fails, right? If a bank fails and the Fed does not bail them out, let me back up and say this. And I love that you asked this question. Let me back up and say this. Okay. So we have a banking system here in the United States of America, which is called the fractional reserve banking. Okay. I can't believe I didn't even touch on this today, talking about money and money 101, but I appreciate your question. So we have a banking system here in America, which is called the fractional reserve banking system. What does this mean? Well, what it means is that, let's say, Elizabeth, that you have $100 and you deposit it into the bank. Okay. The bank only has to keep 10% of your money, right? They have to keep $10, and then they're able to lend out $90, right? So now let's say that I go and I get a loan and I borrow those $90, and then I go to my bank and I deposit those $90. Now they only have to keep $9 out of that $90, and they can lend out $81. So let's say someone else goes and borrows that $81 and they deposit it into their bank. Now their bank only has to keep $8 of that $81, and they can lend out $72. They lend it out to someone else. that person deposits those $72 into their account. That bank only has to keep $7 of it, and they can lend out $63 to someone else, $64, $65, whatever it is, and on and on and on and on. Which means that most of the money in circulation is fake. It's credit. Okay? It's credit. It's not real money. Now, let's back up. So we all know that the bank is supposed to keep 10% of your money on hand. So what this means is that if you have $1,000 in the bank does not have your $1,000. The bank cannot make money by just having your money in a safe and storing it for you. The bank uses that money to buy bonds, to lend it out, to do business, to invest it, to make more money. All right. Now, I just said that the bank has to keep 10% of your money. But again, and this is why people need to pay attention to what's going on in the world. Starting last year when President Biden issued Executive Order 14067, very quietly, he made it to where banks no longer have to keep any of your money in the bank in reserves. So one of these things that's causing banks to fail is that when people panic or go take out their money from the bank doesn't have your money. All right. Remember that song by Rihanna? Chick better have my money. The bank don't have that. Okay. They don't got that. All right. So this is why when there's a run in the bank, okay, which means that people panic and they want to get their money out the bank, banks fail because they actually don't have your money. All right. We saw this in 2008. All right. During the market crash in 2008, people were going to their ATM. Let's say you had $5,000 in the bank. Let's say you had $1,000 in the bank. Let's say you had $600 in the bank. People were going to the ATM in 2008. I don't know who here had experience with that, remembers that. And the ATM would say maximum withdrawal limit $100. Okay? So just think about that for a second. So should you have your money in the bank? Should you take it out? You know, I'm not, looking to give anyone financial advice. You know, that's a personal choice. What I would say is if you're looking for other ways to bank safely and protect your money safely, and you want to reach out to me, I'll be happy to share with you, what I do to protect my money against that specific situation. But I don't want to give anybody any blanket financial advice about whether they should take their money out or leave it in. I personally don't keep a lot of money in the bank. And what you'll know is, and I'm not calling myself a wealthy person, but wealthy people don't have a lot of money in the bank because they take their money and they invest it into assets. Okay. They there's three things that the wealthy do. All right. And I'll end on this topic. Number one, they stop trading time for money. Okay. So I'm not saying that if you have a job, you should stop working your job. I'm just saying that if you have a job, you'll never get rich on that job. All right. You have to formulate a plan to make a certain amount of money. So then you could do number two. The second thing that wealthy people do for money, and that's that they make their money work for them. Okay. They invest their money, they acquire assets. And then number three, they bring value to as many people as possible. Okay. But that goes into having a business, right? Businesses are the ones that are able to bring value. Okay. So again, I don't want to give financial advice. If you want more information on what I do with my money, how I bank, reach out to me, comment below, and and we'll connect and we'll talk more. But like I said, I just really wanted to come on here and share some education with people, some financial education, because like I said at the top of the show, I believe that financial education is the civil rights movement of our time. Okay. And we're living in a time where people really don't know a lot about money, how is it created, and how it affects us all. So Like my wife said, good questions. Thank you all. So, guys, I'm gonna hop out of here. Thank you so much. If you found value in this, comment below. Share this. That's the most important thing that you can do, right? Is share this with someone that you think that can find value. Share this with someone that you know needs to learn more about how to grow and protect their money, especially with what's happening in the economy today. It helps the platform grow. It helps me reach more people, and that's really my mission. So thank you so much, guys, for joining me tonight. To my lovely wife, I love you. Elizabeth, thank you. Dolores, thank you for tuning in. See you back here, guys, next Monday for another episode of This Week in Money. This Week in Money. Until then, guys, be blessed. Peace.